In what I could only describe as an epic press conference, Donald Trump said that we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America because you can just do things. And why not? Let's call it that. I could be wrong, but don't we have more coastline around the Gulf than Mexico does anyway? So let's roll, Trump. And then he was asked, would he rule out using military or economic coercion and force to secure the Panama Canal or Greenland? And Trump said no. Sometimes you have to do things, you know? And so, of course, everybody wants to imagine just like U.S. troops storming the beaches of Nook. It's not going to happen. Trump was likely referring to using economic negotiations against Panama because there's a deep concern that Chinese companies are largely in control of the Panama Canal. So it makes no sense that the U.S. has given up this access, considering we built it. But we'll talk about that, plus a bunch of other crazy stories. This morning, Meta announced they're ending censorship. My friends, Mark Zuckerberg is a fair weather friend, okay? When Biden says censor, he does. When Trump says, we don't want this, Zuckerberg comes back, oh, no, okay, we're going to stop this. But putting Dana White on the board was a good move, so we'll talk about that. Plus, wildfires sweeping through the L.A. area in the Palisades. Horrifying story. But you know what's crazy about this? A viral video from earlier in the day of a homeless person in California, in the L.A. area, starting fires. Starting wildfires. I'm not saying this homeless person in this video did it, but there's a very serious problem when you have people detached from society starting wildfires. So we'll talk about all that stuff. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to pick up Cast Brew coffee. It's the best dang coffee. We got 2 weeks till Christmas. Of course, it is now 2 weeks from Christmas, but still, you can get a bag of this gingerbread coffee, and with it comes a picture of Phil Labonte dressed like Santa Claus.
Get it.
There you go. And then, of course, we've got, dude, Ian's Graphene Dream is back in stock, and we've already sold a ton. I think he sold 100 bags so far. I don't know what it is about Ian's Graphene Dream, but people want to enjoy that dream with him. He sold 5,350 bags of this stuff in like a month. And then we launched this with only 2,100 restock, and he sold like a little bit more than that. I think he sold around 100 bags so far. People love that guy. Whatever it is, he's got good coffee. And we got Appalachian Nights, too. Also, my friends, if you click the link in the description below or go to boonieshq.com, I have a major announcement. The new Tim Pool Pro Model skateboard called the 28th Amendment. I recommend you purchase this one, for it has an image of a chicken that reads, the 28th Amendment, chickens being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep, bear, and breed chickens shall not be infringed. And if you'd like to own this skateboard, go to boonieshq.com or click the link in the description below. And of course, go to timcast.com, click join us, sign up, become a member to support our work directly, because as a member, you make all of this possible. And we talk about the things that are very difficult to talk about, not so family friendly, on our uncensored members only show. So tonight and every night, y'all who are listening on the audio podcast, or if you're listening live right now, you can go to timcast.com, sign up, be a member, support the show and the work we're doing, and you will get access to our Discord server, which is a chat room where you can hang out with like-minded individuals. There's pre-shows, there's after-shows, tons of extra content. It is a massive community. And I'll tell you why. Look, we're setting up these coffee franchises. We want physical locations. But in the meantime, the Founding Fathers organized a revolution meeting in bars and pubs. And we've got a Discord server so you can connect with like-minded individuals, because it is this organization that helps win elections and shapes the future of culture in this country. And we're winning. I look forward to all of your contributions. I want you all to remember this. When they do rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and every map maker in the country starts basking in dollar bills and making it rain on each other as they reissue new maps, you played a role in it. So be proud. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Cliff Maloney.
Great to be with Timcast Nation as always. Cliff Maloney here, CEO at Citizens Alliance. We're on a victory tour right now. Just got done winning Pennsylvania with our Pennsylvania Chase program, and excited to continue to fight for liberty, but excited to be here with you, Tim.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. Raymond's here.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Raymond G. Stanley Jr., American Marine veteran, base mine with the look of laughter. And I'm looking forward to talking about some Manifest Destiny. Go America. Phil.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here we go from the New York Times. Trump floats using force to take Greenland and the Panama Canal. I would love to see a movie of just like U.S. troops storming the beaches of Greenland and the people of Greenland welcoming them as liberators of the evil Danish Empire. But in all seriousness, the New York Times says President-elect Donald J. Trump refused on Tuesday to rule out the use of military or economic coercion to force Panama to give up control of the canal that America built more than a century ago, and to push Denmark to sell Greenland to the United States. Look, they say, in a rambling hour-long news conference, Mr. Trump repeatedly returned to the theme of American sacrifice in building the canal and accused China falsely of operating it today. When pressed on the question of whether he might order the military to force Panama to give it up in violation of treaties and other agreements reached during the Carter administration, we all think fondly of the Carter administration, or to do the same with Greenland, he said, no, I can't assure you on either of those two. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that. You might have to do something. Mr. Trump's statements propelled his repeated calls for expanding American territory to a new level, one that is bound to royal three American allies, Panama, Denmark, which handles Greenland's foreign and security affairs, and Canada, which he has mocked as America's 51st state. I got an honest question. Cliff, why are they pretending to be mad about this?
I think I'm more mad about it. I mean, if Canada comes in as a 51st state, I mean, I think we're going to have some problems. I think it's Senate and the House.
Yeah, it's 41 Democrat electoral votes.
Yeah, that would be no bueno.
But if we subjugate them as a territory with or a colony, we don't know got any colonies anymore. They can have autonomy under Trump. Right. But then Trump can intervene as the new head of state.
And as the colonizers we are, we could just go ahead and colonize them. No,
but in all seriousness, like Canada's not going to become the 51st state. You know what I mean? Greenland would be negotiated over a trade deal. Panama, of course, was built by the United States and would be negotiated over a trade deal. This is it's performative outrage. Who really cares?
I could honestly envision a situation where Panama was a flashpoint for a larger conflict, so possibly a conflict between the United States and China. Particularly seeing as that's the reason that there's any kind of friction friction between the U.S. and Panama as it is. The U.S. did build it. The U.S. invested a lot of money. A lot of Americans died. Malaria was a big problem back then.
Yeah, but do you guys think they're becoming territories, or do you think these would actually become states?
So as far as that kind of stuff, definitely don't want to see Canada as a state, right? I don't know if we should, I don't think that I want to see Greenland become a state either. Territories, maybe, but I mean, if I understand correctly, there's only like 50,000 people in Greenland. And so I don't know that they have enough people to actually become a state. I think that the actual number of people that live there has an effect on whether or not it can be a state. This is just my basic understanding.
I think we should invade Canada, remove their government, and then relinquish control. So I think it was who was it? Was it Polk? The U.S. basically won Mexico in a war. And then Polk was like, Mexico, you can have it back. We don't want it. And a lot of Americans were pissed about it. They're like, whoa. We won this in Conquest, and you gave up all this land. So I'm looking at it this way. We can look at the Canadian government and see it's in total disarray. And I'm half kidding. Calm down, liberals and corporate press. But if the U.S. putting pressure on Canada, like Trump did with Trudeau to remove Trudeau from power, is exactly what I'm talking about. That's a good thing. People need to understand this. Trudeau resigned because the Trump tariff threats destroyed their government. They're panicking because they rely so heavily on us and us not on them.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of economic coercion we're talking about, which I think is a good thing.
I mean, I was talking about it last night. Canada exists because the United States allows them to exist. Their entire defense is because of the United States. Yep. Now, they do have a military, fair enough, but the U.S. is NATO, right? And the U.S. does I think 75% of the heavy lifting for NATO. The U.S. trade with the U.S. is what keeps Canada in business. If the United States wants Canada to do something, Canada's going to do it eventually. The U.S. will figure out ways to apply soft power, and they're going to do it. They don't have the ability to stand up to the U.S. and say, no, we're not. We're putting our foot down. About the only thing that we're not going to be able to get away with is actually literally annexing the country.
Right. I mean, let's be real. Donald Trump spoke on Truth Social about a tariff, and Trudeau was removed from office. In fact, basically, I mean, he's still there, but he's basically done. His career is over because Trump said some words on the internet.
Yeah.
Canada is basically a vassal of the U.S. as it is, so we don't need them to interfere in our politics. Trump's going to get in, and he can, if he puts a tariff on Canadian goods, they will drop to their knees and beg Trump to stop, and Trump need only say, "You're going to do what we tell you to do."
Yeah.
I don't understand why Canada gets to suckle the teat of America, and we give them special deals so that they can live in luxury. And then when Trump says we're going to put a tariff on your goods because it is only by our good graces you get free trade in the first place, they lose their minds. If we're doing something wrong, no, you don't get to just trade with us. We decide on our terms what a good deal is, and if the deal is not good, then you can go somewhere else. Good luck, Canada, with your reindeer. They got oil. I appreciate that. And I'm not saying Canada doesn't have trades with us, right? They sell us oil. They got tar sands, and we negotiate. And we have the right as a nation to be like, nah, we're not interested anymore. We're going to renegotiate terms on this deal.
Well, I think that Trump represents a lot of people pushing back on all these unfair deals. I mean, look at NATO, right? What did you just say, Phil? I mean, the amount of money that we pour into NATO, and somehow we have an equal vote, and it's like, oh, well, and that's just been that way for years. That's why I think you look at this photo of Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk and Sergio Gore standing there. It's like, look, obviously this is all going to be peaceful. I would predict at this point.
Yeah.
But I think that, aren't we just kind of tired of getting the low? We always are the ones that it's never fair for us, and that's just accepted.
Yep.
That's what's crazy about the Panama thing. You've got the New York Times saying Donald Trump would violate treaties set by Carter. It's like, oh, we all hold Carter in such great reverence. Yeah, listen, we built the thing. We want to renegotiate terms. We, as the American people, we work hard. Trees were planted for the next generations to sit beneath in that shade. And what's wrong with Trump saying, I want to renegotiate terms?
And furthermore to that point, the United States did build the Panama Canal. The U.S. has been the global hegemon that has kept the seas free for global trade for definitely the past 75 years. Some would argue for even longer. The U.S. Navy makes international trade much safer. That's why, whatever you think of the U.S. overall, just the fact that we have made the seas safe for international trade has made the United States a net positive for the world. No matter what else someone wants to criticize the U.S. for, the reason that all of the countries around the world can send their goods around the world, and about the only place that you have to worry about is if you're off the coast of Somalia.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah, because they get a little wacky. But other than that, like, the U.S. does have the authority to say you can't dictate terms on the Panama Canal because we built it and we keep the rest of the world safe to trade.
The U.S. used to be a dad who would go to his kid and say, shut your mouth. If you want to buy the video game, go mow some lawns and make some money. And then it turned into the desperate, aging, cool mom who was like, I'll give you anything you want if you just pretend like you like me and you think I'm cool. This idea that the New York Times is like, we should just give all of these things to every other country. It's like, yeah, okay, well, that will destroy the United States. Why don't we be responsible? And I'll tell you exactly why this matters to me. I hate war. I think we shouldn't be invading these other countries. That's the scumbag option. The easy option is we maintain economic control of the things we build, the things we protect. We work trade agreements that benefit us, so we maintain strength and power, and then there isn't war because we have the economic control.
Yeah.
And that avoids death. And so that's why I've long said with Ukraine and Russia, Russia's in the wrong because they lost the soft power battle, which is subterfuge, which is economics and all of these things. So they resorted to physical violence. I think if we're going to be playing any kind of game, it's we have the power economically. We will brain drain your countries, and I mean that in the actual sense, not the H-1B garbage. We will take your best and brightest. We'll build the best companies. We will control the high seas. We will control what we build. You can trade with us. No more invasions. No war. We win through economics and diplomacy.
I love the Trump line when he says, they're always trying to grill him on his foreign policy. And when he says, I want to end the dying, right? Because it really is that simple, right? There's always going to be, troops in here, troops out there. But even the New York Times article we had up, where they literally are saying in an hour-long rambling speech, right? Like any time, how do you'd think there'd be some reset, which there isn't with them. They're just going to have to fail.
Some there have been.
Well, yes, but I just mean it's to make it that obvious still. But when it comes to foreign policy, man, the institutions, and they just hate the fact that is Trump's gut instinct. He wants to stop the dying. And to me, I still think that's one of the major reasons why he got elected.
Yeah.
Is this idea that people are tired of having Biden couldn't even speak a sentence, let alone pick up the phone to call these foreign dictators. Trump represented at least some rational thought.
Afghanistan was the moment Joe Biden's approval rating inverted.
Dropped.
Because we saw the death of U.S. men and women in uniform. We saw the complete and utter collapse of a 20-year investment of the United States, for better or for worse. If you want to argue we shouldn't have gone there in the first place, there was still an effort to maintain security and keep China and our enemies from seizing this territory. And it fell apart overnight because Joe Biden's a moron. The plans they had for Afghanistan, as Ian calls it, was a surrender. And every move they made, there's no logic within it. This flipped things in this country because many people in this country don't like war. So when you see tensions escalating, the expansion of ISIS, et cetera, what's funny is that in Trump's term, he crushes ISIS, no new wars. Ukraine actually was cooling down when in 2014, when I went there and the beginning of the separatist movement, it was bubbling up. I wasn't there when it broke off into full-on conflict, but they were calling it a civil war erupting.
You went to Ukraine or Russia?
Ukraine.
Yep.
I was in Ukraine 3 times. So I went there in 2014 at the start of the Euromaidan protests, which ultimately led to the ousting of Yanukovych, which ultimately led to the separatist movement, and then what people were referring to as a civil war. I came back after Trump was president, and you know what my friend in Ukraine told me? No, we don't call it a civil war anymore. There's some fighting now, but it's really calming down. And I'm like, whoa, okay, wow. That's pretty crazy. I was like, really? I thought it was going to be like a civil war or something. And then Biden gets in, and what do you get? Once again, I think, exactly. It's insanity. The Biden administration, Obama, Kamala, Hillary, all of their ilk have no idea how to manage the system, and Trump's been right the whole time. I think people saw all of that, and they also recognize that Trump's joking half the time. He's being silly, or, when it comes to the use of military economic force, we're not going to see the military invading Panama, but the media still pretends like it's 2019 or it's 2022. Yeah, no, it's changed. People saw through this, and it's time we got some sound foreign policy.
Well, and Republicans now are backing off. We've talked about Defend the Guard, the bill that Bring Our Troops Home runs. And now Republicans, this will be a big test. Do they keep pushing forward? Because we do. All these guardsmen are overseas. That's one of the best bills at the state level. And so that's going to be an interesting test to see, because it's easy when Biden's in the White House, right? But if you got a Republican president and you want to limit the guardsmen that they can use, this is the time to do it. I think Trump would support it publicly, even though he's the guy, but that'll be a big test in 25 to see if those bills go forward.
Trump posted this on Truth Social. It's a picture of the U.S. and Canada, but it just reads the United States. And these are the memes that have been popping up all over the place, where there's one funny one where it's like Mexico is South America, then we're America, and then Canada is North America, and then Greenland is like American territory. Phil mentioned he saw a funny one.
It just said where Mexico was, it just said the other side of the wall.
Agreed. The other side of the wall. We don't talk about what's beyond the Great Wall. But
You don't leave. You don't,
we got a response from where's that silly post? Here we go. This is the Liberal Party of Canada, and then everyone's favorite Harry Sisson reposted it.
Oh gosh. We got to get that quote shirt somewhere.
These people just can't have a little fun. They're so busy hating Donald Trump and hating the right. They can't just acknowledge that these are all jokes and it's just fun. It's just a little bit of friendly ribbing to our neighbor to the north. But people like Harry Sisson are just hall monitors and miserable, awful people.
The Liberal Party of Canada said, for anyone who may be confused, and then Canada is not the United States, and then the U.S. is the U.S., I don't think they understand what conquest means.
You don't get a say.
Yeah, exactly. We are well aware that you think you're sovereign, Canada, and we're coming. And the funny thing is, we will be greeted as liberators.
I mean, there's at least a couple provinces
truckers.
that are gonna be like,
A couple of truckers. Truckers will love us. Farmers
The
will love
truckers
us.
will be honking and cheering as Americans come in, and they're like, "You now have a Bill of Rights."
They're like,
yeah, I
"Thank
think
God."
the people that'll have the most problem with it is the French in Quebec.
Yeah.
Because they don't even like Canada, never mind the United States being in charge.
Well, no. What we do is when the U.S. conquers Canada by literally declaring it and walking in, is well, let's be real, what would happen? And I'm half kidding. I'm only half kidding. But what we do is we remove the Canadian government, reform it as an American constitutional style liberal democracy. They call it. I don't mean liberal, but it's called a liberal democracy.
Gotcha.
And then Quebec becomes its own nation with its own American style constitutional democracy, and then we leave. Goodbye.
yeah.
They would probably be way better off than they are now.
What do you think Pierre plays into this?
He would love
Well,
it.
you saw what he tweeted, right?
Yeah.
No, fill me in.
He said Canada will never be a part of America. You know, I stand by blah blah blah. Let me pull up. He's great.
I mean, I understand the national pride. That's fair on his aspect. I would be saying the same thing.
That's the right answer if
Yeah,
you're looking to be
yeah.
the prime minister.
So
you know?
here's what he responded with. He said, Canada will never be the 51st state, period. We're a great and independent country. We're the best friend of the U.S. We spent billions of dollars and hundreds of lives helping Americans retaliate against al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks. We supplied the U.S. with billions of dollars of high quality and totally reliable energy well below market price. We buy hundreds of billions of dollars of American goods. Our weak and pathetic NDP liberal government has failed to make these obvious points. I will fight for Canada. When I am Prime Minister, we will rebuild our military and take back control of the border to secure both Canada and the U.S. We will take back control of our Arctic to keep Russia and China out. We will axe taxes, slash red tape, and rapidly greenlight massive resource projects to bring home paychecks and production to our country. In other words, we will put Canada first. He did spell paychecks wrong. I just want to point that out for everybody.
Probably French.
It's a Frenchie.
Yep. Gunther Eagleman says, hey, Pierre, cooperation is appreciated, not required. Didn't you push for tyrannical COVID mandates? Don't think we didn't watch as you towed the line, too. We will make you a territory, and you won't be able to do anything about it. Adrienne Curry says, you are the size of California and populous and exist because America permits it.
Yes.
Unless you'd rather be China's bitch.
Yes. Good call, Adrian. I'm sure she's in the chat now.
I like Pierre,
Call
though.
on that.
We do think he's the real deal?
I don't know. I've seen a couple of videos that are good. I'm not big in Canadian politics because they're less consequential than New Jersey.
Agreed. I just have seen some comparisons to like Javier Milei, and I'm like, let's pull it back
easy,
here.
Easy, Tiger.
Those are big shoes to fill.
Serious, like Malay, like Pierre's not going to go in and cut whatever 7 or 8 different government agencies. Like that's not happening. I mean,
Things that I would sacrifice or give up if we had Millet in our government. Just even if only for a week, for him to come in and afuera a whole bunch of these bureaucracies. But to be fair, I'm hoping Doge fulfills this role.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear is it doesn't happen. You know, and look, my whole pitch is this: the battle is going to be simply Doge versus the swamp, and everybody out there thinks they know which of these politicians are on which side. You will be surprised when some of these battles come out. There are going to be people that have been saying they were Doge for an entire year, and not the ones that you're thinking. I'm not talking to Lindsey Graham's. You'll have some of these Republican congressmen who always talk a big game, but Elon and Vivek have to make it very clear where is the battle, which bills, because the swamp is going to do everything they can to just distort. I mean, this first battle with the CR, if you don't think the swamp's not coming back with the same stuff, thank God for Grok.
Doesn't Trump want an omnibus now?
Yes.
Yes, but I think he wants it. Look, everybody loves an omnibus if it has all your goodies in it.
That's right.
Right? So, yeah, he's pushing for that. He's also said maybe multiple bills. But I don't care. I just want Doge. If they're going to do real things, let's say they're going to actually cut departments. Let's say they're going to say we're going to cut spending. Even 1% would be a record if it's actual cuts of 1%.
It would be the most libertarian thing that has happened to the federal government in at least the past 40 years, probably ever.
And let's say they say, hey, we're going to cut 10% of the staff of the bureaucracy, right?
That is earth-shaking.
Getting that in a clear, simple, not to say simple package, but having it where it's like, hey, this is the battle. If you have a battle every week, it's going to be tough to mobilize against the swamp. And so that's where you just need that Musk precision on some of these Doge versus swamp battles.
I can't believe I have to clarify this, but we are not seriously suggesting the U.S. invade and conquer Canada. Like, it's a joke. We're making fun of the frailty of the Canadian government. Trump simply posted on Truth Social about tariffs on Canada, and it destroyed the Liberal Party leadership. We don't have to do much to make Canada do what we want them to do. I don't want Canada to be part of the U.S. either.
To be fair, like the Liberal Party and Trudeau have done so much damage to themselves over the past, however long Trudeau's been the prime minister. Like, they have done so much damage that it doesn't take much to cause great damage, because he's historically unpopular, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, he's like 28% or something. That nuts.
But back to what you were saying about an omnibus bill.
Yeah.
I was talking. Me and Cliff were talking. I think that it's okay because if you want to get things like the wall built, want to get actual change to the policies regarding the border. If you want to get that kind of stuff and you put it in an omnibus bill, the omnibus bills are more likely to pass. They're going to have more stuff that you don't like, but they're going to have all the stuff that you do. And if you have it broken up into multiple bills, you're going to have a harder time getting these bills passed. Again, I bring up the makeup of the Senate and the House. The Republicans have a razor thin lead. So what's going to happen to get anything done, it's going to have to be through working with the other side. We just don't have the votes to shove stuff through. I wish we did, and I would love it if we did. This is not some kind of endorsement of having a bunch of pork in the bill, but if you want real change with the border and with immigration, put it in an omnibus and then let the Democrats stuff it with pork. I hate it. I know I hate it, but the bill will pass. If you really care about fixing the border and really care about building the wall, you're gonna have to work. You're gonna have to deal with them.
You are correct. We don't have the votes. Single issue bills would take a millennia, and Trump would never get anything done. So the one argument I do accept is we're going to have to accept a lot of compromise to get through what we want to get through through an omnibus, even though we despise the omnibus CRs, all that garbage strategy. I will accept if we want to get started immediately, then the Trump agenda needs a solid, straight package. That being said, my concern and why I don't like it, it's not just going to be pork, it's going to be obstruction. It's going to be loaded with Democrat garbage obstruction to stop the Trump agenda. And there's an argument we may be better off with Trump getting single issue bills passed, sure, on a thin margin. But if they're done fast enough, you can get them through before the squishy Republicans back down and start voting Democrat.
Yeah, but nobody's talking about putting things into these omnibus bills that are actual cuts, right? Like, that's what I'm waiting for. Yeah. We're talking about all of the spending. We're talking about the priorities with, more money. The swamp loves that. The swamp loves where that money.
But I don't think cuts are on the table. I think that to get funding changes, I don't think that Doge is going to be working that way. Like, Doge is not going to be saying, we're going to get legislation that makes cuts. I just don't think that we don't have the votes. And again, I don't like any of this. I'm not happy about this at all. But if you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. The government is set up the way that it's set up, and no matter how much we sit here and pontificate about how much we wish it wasn't this way or whatever, it doesn't matter. If we don't have the votes, we don't have the votes. And we have 18 months from when Trump goes in to get this stuff done.
But this means with these omnibus bills, Johnson's going to go to some Democrat and say, what do we got to do to get you to vote yes on this bill? Okay. Or he's going to go to the switch Republicans, of course, and they're going to say, I want these compromises. And then they're going to try and get a narrow majority or whatever. They don't need that many Democrat votes to get through. But it does mean there's going to be some kooky stuff in there from weird districts.
Yep.
I think I'd put it this way. I really hate the idea of continuing the omnibus garbage, but I'm at the 50.1% mark of just get it through so that Trump can do what he needs to do. Otherwise, I'm afraid it won't happen at all.
Yeah, we got to start doing it now. And if we just keep waiting and trying to fight it, if we don't get it done, then it's a waste of the next.
Yeah, but let me play devil's advocate a little bit. So, like, okay, let's say Vivek and Musk come to Trump and say, look, you don't have to do this for legislation. We can cut, 2 departments.
Anything that he wants to do, executive order, I'm for.
But
Go,
then-
cut,
but then
make-
you-
do it as much as
He
you
wants
can.
to annex Canada through executive order.
But then they'd have to adjust it. I mean, listen, if the FBI, I'm just using numbers here. Let's say the FBI gets $100 a year. Obviously, they get much more, and we cut 10% of their agents or these IRS agents or whatever you're looking at. You have to reduce the money. If you don't, they're going to spend the $100.
Yeah.
But they're going to spend what they're given, and it just means it goes to less people. So to me, and by the way, 18 months, I think we got 100 days. I do not think this is something where you get 2 years. You have 100 days to get things in motion, and then maybe 18 months to get them done. But this has to be just, I mean, every single day they got to be firing things out.
100%.
Once January 20 gets here.
100%.
Yeah, I don't see them as one issue. Let's get Doge to focus on the cuts, and Trump can focus on the agenda. They can both happen. I do think, however, where it overlaps is there's going to be squishy Republicans and some Democrats that are going to be given a deal in order to vote for the Omnibus package, which is going to block some of the Doge cuts. However, with the majority, slim as it may be, Republicans don't need to compromise that much. And so there may be some cuts that need to happen that don't happen, but I do think we're in a net positive so far, as much as I don't like them going the omnibus route. I really don't know what else you'd do at this point.
Yeah. I don't. Go ahead.
Trump's got 4 years.
I just wonder if you guys would be okay with the money to Ukraine and Israel if, like, we got the border closed and, got some of the MAGA agenda done.
Oh, man. Yep. That's such a difficult question.
Yep.
Because this country will not survive with the destructive immigration policies that have been happening over the past 4 years and even longer. And so the question is, should we exacerbate international conflict? Okay, well, here's the double-edged sword. If that is the deal, and you may be hitting the nail on the head with this one, what they might try to play. If we get international conflict, we're going to end up with 20 million refugees, and they're going to be storming the southern border overnight. Not literally overnight, but they're going to say, oh, no, look at all the displaced from the war and the conflict. They have nowhere to go. And then we're going to be dealing with it even if we secure the border. Mm-hmm. So that is a tough spot to be in. Because if they're going to obstruct our ability to secure the border over their desire for international conflict, we're in a rock and hard place. And that's a really good point. I say specifically because there's going to be Republicans who say that. There's going to be a ton of Republicans who are like, I'm in a military district.
Oh, yeah.
We need funding for the manufacturing. We need money funding for the bases. So when you say you're spending money in Ukraine, that goes to our city where we make these weapons, where we build these supplies, where we refine the fuels, where we train the troops. They're going to say, we want that. We want that spending.
No, that's their talking point. But here's the thing. If that's the position we're in, this is how pessimistic I am about Republicans' ability to actually negotiate. If that's the situation where that's the trade-off, I'm not here to advocate for it. Sure. I don't believe in any foreign aid.
We have to do all these caveats today. Like, look, we're talking about reality. We're not talking about anything we want.
But if it's that and hitting our priority versus hitting our priority and then them adding in some gobbledygook woke DEI or something, that to me is like, that's usually where the Republicans end up.
The DEI,
right? It's not something that is like, oh, this is kind of a hot button issue. It's like, no, they push in their things so they can go back to their base and their donors and they can act like, see, we're still winning on these progressive values.
I know this wasn't your point, but DEI stuff, Harmeet Dillon's going to do a really, really good job taking care of that stuff because it is illegal and she's running that part of the DOJ now. So
Sweet.
So that would be.
But you get what I'm saying.
I do, yeah. I understand.
It'll be some sort of weird green news scam thing.
Yep.
Rather than, hey, let's have a real debate on something that's contentious.
Yeah, but look, I mean, I think we all kind of agree that like the border and immigration are the most important issues to the American people, to the average American person. Like, and it doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever. You listen to the people in south side of Chicago, and they are complaining about immigration and stuff. So it's like, are you looking to the black community there? And it's so. If you're going to give us a secure border and fund ICE to go ahead and round up the illegals that are here and actually do deportations and fund the necessary equipment to transport people back to their countries of origin, I think that you're going to have to deal with. I think I would be okay with pork if you're going to be actually deporting people.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'm willing to, it depends on the pork, right? I guess it's the easiest way to put it. The compromise is fine so long as the compromise is in areas where okay with. If they come in and they say they want $50 million for creepy DEI stuff and they want weird books in our schools, we say no. If they come out and they say, oh, we want to fund like one particular local thing, and we're like, that's a compromise I don't really care about.
Yep. Fair enough.
I dig it.
Let's jump to this next story from CNN. Ladies and gentlemen, Meta is getting rid of fact checkers. Zuckerberg acknowledged more harmful content will appear on the platforms now. I love how CNN frames this. Censorship is over. Zuckerberg basically comes out and says, we
Harmful
give
to
up.
who?
Yeah, harmful to who indeed. But I love using CNN as a source because of the way they frame things, and we can rip this apart. We do have the video, however, from Zuckerberg himself, where he, this is a quick clip. Here we go.
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies,
Look at that glow
and
up.
restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just tell all of you first and foremost, you know it, Mark Zuckerberg is a fair weather friend. When Trump was the enemy and the media was screaming, Facebook just said, we will do whatever you say. When Trump wins, he comes out and says, okay, I guess free speech. I don't trust the guy at all, but I'll take the win when I can get it. So right now, as I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, we're a podcast. We negotiate with different ad networks. They do sales and things like this. And, whenever I'm negotiating, I'm like, oh, and by the way, like, don't forget we have Facebook. Facebook is a platform where we get X amount of views and all that stuff, and we're not really monetizing there. We don't post ads. Every company we talk to says Facebook is dead. They're like, nobody's making money on Facebook anymore. I mean, it's a little bit, but it's just pointless. Mark Zuckerberg burned the biggest social media platform to the ground. The most important thing he said in that whole speech he gave was that he didn't say it directly, but he said it. The U.S. government targeted Facebook and forced them to do these things. But I want to make sure I stress this point. Mark Zuckerberg is a very weak man. Okay, I'm not trying to rag on you, Mark. Okay, I'm not trying to be a dick, but let me just tell you. I respect doing the BJJ training. I respect trying to get into shape. I respect you doing the right thing right now, but I don't trust you because when Elon Musk joined the fray during a major cycle where Trump, and he brought a bunch of people back, not perfect, what he was doing on X, but he did pull back some of the censorship. The SEC and the FTC went after his companies.
Yep.
They tried to destroy him. A judge suspended his pay package. We, the shareholders of Tesla, then voted to reinstate it, and they still blocked his pay package. He took great and tremendous risks because he wanted this, whatever you think his reasoning was, and Zuckerberg bent the knee until it was all safe and all clear.
Yeah, and I think, I think that Zuckerberg probably, now some people say, no, it was intentional, Zuck bucks, all this stuff on the left. I think he got played. He went in, he thought, I'm doing the right thing. I mean, if you look at the narrative of kind of the American electorate, I think it follows Zuck, right? The average experience of these institutions can't be bad. Of course, we all need to get a jab. These are health officials telling us to do this, right? Oh, we need to back it up and we need to stop misinformation. We have to stop the disinformation. And then I think it got to a point where he realized, like, man, they used me, right? They used me. And now he's got to survive politically. He's got to be able to push back and try to save his company. So I don't feel bad for him, but I would say that I don't think it's all intentional. I think he's just reacting and probably realizing that they manipulated him.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about the idea that he just didn't realize what was going on because it was bit by bit. It was small things.
He trusted the government.
Yeah, and I mean he was a Democrat beforehand, anyways. Like he said that he was a libertarian, but or talked like that. But
don't tarnish our brand.
Listen, there is nobody better at tarnishing the libertarian brand than libertarians. Right. So, I'm
going to stand like this as I respond and say, yeah, dude, he didn't get tricked. He's just like, this is the path of least resistance. Also, the reason I'm standing is that my right thigh has cramped, completely locking up. I ran. What was it? What's today? Tuesday? I ran on Sunday, Monday, and then I skated today, and now my right thigh is just completely locked up. I can't sit down anymore.
Jogging thing?
Yeah, I was jogging. Yeah.
I hate it.
Yep. And now went skating today and can't sit down anymore. But yeah, come on. Elon Musk bought himself into this conflict. They tried to block the sale in the first place, attacked him in every direction. And Zuckerberg has always just taken the path of least resistance. I'm fine with Zuckerberg, with Cenk Uygur and all these people. I'm not like, there's a lot of these MAGA guys who are like, no, don't welcome them. Hey, take the power where you can get it. You know what I mean? If Zuckerberg is now going to open up Meta so we can start using the platform, making money, promoting content, sending a message, it's a good thing. And I will add that putting Dana White on the board means that even throughout the next administrations, it's going to be a shield against this kind of censorship.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I think, look, I don't want to discredit Elon. You know, I when I compare the two, I think Elon Musk, in my opinion, saved free speech in America. I mean, I think
I agree.
let's think about it. If he doesn't take over X, I mean, you know, yes, we've got some of these other platforms popping up, but it was like you said, Tim, the guy risked everything, put his money on the line, his freedom, his ability to own these companies, the control of them. And I think, you know, he bet not just on the right horse, but on the right idea that the people were going to be with him, and I think they are.
I think the long or the long and short of it is if Zuckerberg is going to end the fact checkers, and they're going to have something like community notes, and they're going to actually try to open up to have free speech be a principle on the platform, I think it's an overall good. That doesn't mean you have to like Zuckerberg. That doesn't mean you have to trust him. I'm not, like, I post on my Instagram page a couple times a month maybe. Like, I don't use Meta properties. I don't use Messenger. I don't have a Facebook page that I run or that I use. I closed my personal one down, like my public personal page down in like 2018. Because they do the whole throttling, you know, where you can't get your people that follow you don't see your posts. It wasn't a big page; it was like 60,000 or whatever. But like, I would post something and maybe like 150, 200 people would see it. So I'm just like, all right, well, there's no point in posting anything on here. I'm not getting anything out to anyone. And I post on, even back then, posting on Twitter, I knew more people were seeing what I posted on Twitter than on Facebook. So I mean, I'm not saying that he's a guy to be trusted. I'm not saying that Facebook is the be all end all, but look, if there's a person that's saying the same things, like free speech is important, these are the things that we should care about, that's good. Cenk Uygur talking about that stuff, that's good. Anybody that's going to stop being, being ideologically motivated by what the government and what the left has been pushing for the past, 10 or so years. Anyone that's moving away from that, I say we welcome them in at the very least to say you can listen to what they're saying. That's not saying that you have to trust them or anything.
Yeah. What did anybody think was going to happen? Because I've seen there's a lot of people I respect who are saying do not welcome these liberals in, who are now coming around and saying, oh, you know what? Oh, like Cenk Uygur is the perfect example. Yeah. And the point being made is the liberals who came out before the election and said, I've realized we got to do this and help Trump win, everybody's okay with that. They're like, we get it. Not everybody figured it out at the same time. Some people figured it out in 2015. Some people figured it out in 2020. I was late to the party, of course. And the question is, did you try to help Trump win? Or did you fight against him, and now that you've lost, you're turning it around? I get it. I think it's fine to criticize these people, but what did anyone think was going to happen when we won? These people are going to beg to be on the right side of history. So I say, look, take the power where you can, but just recognize you can't trust them in the long run. Yes. So if Cenk Uygur is going to his audience and saying, MAGA's not that bad, say, thank you, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. He's going to go to his audience. He's going to say, guys, listen, we've got to work with them. They won. We get it. If one person who watches Young Turk says, it's a fair point, I want to get stuff done, and then they go and they watch this show. Then they go, I didn't know that. Then they say, I'm more moderate than I realized. Cenk's an okay guy. Tim's an okay guy. We're winning if that happens. So when Mark Zuckerberg says, no more fact checkers, you can now talk about immigration, gender, and all this stuff, we're winning. Yeah. I don't like Mark Zuckerberg. It's not personal. It's professional. I think he just bends the knee and does whatever he's told because it's a cheap and easy path. But if we get this is big for us. I got to talk to my marketing team and social media team and be like, let's take a look. I'll tell you this. We barely use Facebook. And the reason why is every time we put out a video, they're telling me like, well, you mentioned the word trans, and that's probably going to get you demonetized for a week again. And I'm like, then upload whatever you can upload, I guess. And so we just basically ignore it. And not to mention TikTok, and they're like, TikTok, Trump's now saying, I don't know, maybe we'll keep TikTok around. No, TikTok is still miserable. It's the most censorious platform. I hear it 50 times a week from all these different people who are like, I got banned, I don't know why. And I'm like, yeah, okay, TikTok's terrible, right? Let's not cut them any slack.
No.
If they want to change and reform, we'll accept it. But I'm not. I don't think we should cut the censorship platforms any slack. That being said, we can now start using Facebook again. And I'm hoping this means we can actually make money on the platform and it becomes a successful path towards spreading a message, fact-checking news, getting rid of the fact-checkers. Let me tell you, man, I put up a video in 2020 when the alternate slate submitted their electoral votes, and it was not certified. And it was titled, Republican Elector Slate Submits Electoral Votes to, for Safe Harbor Deadline or whatever, which is a fact statement. They did. And this organization fact-checked it as false, claiming they are not the certified electors, which was not what I claimed. Facebook demonetized the channel, costing me money and basically deranking my posts. And when I messaged Facebook, because there's a contact at Facebook you can talk to, they said, this is an independent fact-checking thing. You got to take it up with them. When I emailed the fact-checkers, they ignored it and said, it's not a true statement. I ended up on the phone with some guy, and I said, my statement is a 100% factually correct statement, and I will cite the New York Times. And he's like, yeah, but it's not the real certified slate of electors. And I said, did you watch the video? And he's like, no. And I said, the first thing I say in the video is that the Republicans who were not certified and are not the certified electors cast their votes unofficially, and they're doing it as potentially a placeholder for a lawsuit. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, we'll remove that. And that was every day that these companies were doing things like this. Mark Zuckerberg knew what they were doing was wrong. He said in this video that they were politically biased. He knew it. And only now that Trump wins is he going to back off. But fine, I'll take it. I'll take a win when we can. This is what we fought for. We fought this political battle so that people like Mark Zuckerberg would put out a 5-minute long video saying, I'm sorry.
Yep. Well, the one part in there, too, he says is, and this was widely known, but they're going to change their algorithm to, they were kind of suppressing all political or, civic speech.
Yeah.
And that was, like you said, I'm in the same boat, right? I've got a small Facebook page, but I haven't used it really actively for years because, Phil, like you said, you're putting all this content up and it's just, they're obviously throttling it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he's going to, at least give us a fair shake, I think that's just going to be better for everybody.
This is the best story. Phil pointed this out to me. This is from the New York Times. So let me give you the context before I read the headline. Mark Zuckerberg puts out this 5-minute long video saying, we're getting rid of fact checkers. We're getting rid of the censorship. You can talk politics again. The fact checkers were biased. So the New York Times writes, Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that false. Fact-checking groups that worked with Meta said they had no role in deciding what the company did with the content that was fact-checked. You see, this is the dirty game they play. No one takes responsibility, but I love the headline of fact-check false. It's Facebook's fault, not ours. They were the henchmen, and Facebook was, and this is the dirty game. Facebook says, oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? The fact checkers say, you got it, boss. And then Facebook says, we didn't ban you. Mm-hmm. We didn't accuse you of anything. There was an interesting thing, however. When what came up in the whole fiasco over Facebook fact checking, I actually entertained a possible lawsuit against Facebook and a couple of these companies. Because in Meta, I should say Meta, not Facebook. If a fact checker on Instagram determines that your post is false, it is not the fact checker that puts a label on it. It is Meta. Meta puts a label saying contains false content. That's a statement of fact that your content is false. And so I think it was early on. I don't know if they kept this up, but it would say it had an I with a slash through it and says this post contains misleading context or false content or some false information or something like this. That's Meta making a statement defaming you, a media producer. And so we never got to that point where we were thinking of suing, but this was not them passing the buck off to third parties. Facebook was using them as an excuse to then make statements where they could say, you can't sue me because they said it was fake news.
Just as long as at the end of the day, if everyone realizes with Chris Cuomo, Chank, Mark Zuckerberg, that they're not our friends at the end of the day. Just we get past that point, they're not our friends. Let them do what they want to do. Come to our side, try to suck our toes because we're winning. But they're not going to be our friends.
Don't let Chris Cuomo suck your toes, please.
Gosh.
There, I agree with you. But again, like Tim was saying, what do you guys think winning looks like? You know what I mean?
Sucking our toes.
No. That's anyways. Winning looks like people want to be around you and people come over to your side and start agreeing with you. If you say, you can't hang out with me like the libertarians do, you end up losing all the time. So, like, take the victory when you have the victory.
Libertarians, I love you on the anti-war stuff, but I can't stand you on the cultural stuff. I can't stand the libertarians. Sorry.
I can't stand them at anything.
Like Dave Smith can sit here and be like, war is bad. And I'm like, you sing, Dave. But when the other libertarians are like, who cares about our borders because the economic numbers are great? I'm like, oh, heaven help me. I want to throw Dave into this because the Mises Caucus is great on this, actually. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of these libertarians who are like, why do we care that 15 million illegal immigrants stormed through our border?
Yeah.
The economy is good. And I'm like,
it's an epidemic. And, the one thing that, my favorite Roger Stone rule that I now equate to libertarians is losers don't legislate. And that is my new rule for a lot of these folks. It's like, have a plan, man, But no, I don't even look at those libertarians as actual libertarians. The Ron Paul, Dave Smith, Tom Woods type libertarians, absolutely. And those people realize the border is a real problem and it is impacting, the fentanyl crisis is a crisis. You cannot just say, oh, let's just open the border.
But it's not so much just that. It is. But my issue is the libertarians, like, why is the border a crisis to me? Well, obviously, you've got trafficking, child trafficking, abuse, drugs. Those are the direct bad. Why is all mass migration bad? And I will say this. I'm a fan of immigration. I like the O1 visa. The O1 is the extraordinary talent. So if you've got a pro athlete, a PhD rocket scientist or whatever, they can come to this country. We'll take them. That's the brain drain, baby. We love that. But when you bring in millions upon millions, legally or otherwise, the American culture is something. Sam Hyde hit the nail on the head with the hammer. You saw that video? It's unquantifiable. It's waking up in the morning at the smell of cinnamon pancakes and coffee that mom's made. It's an orange juice. It's Christmas morning. It's Halloween trick-or-treating. These are things that don't exist in other countries that are not economic. They have nothing to do with whether or not the border has drugs or anything like that. Those are bad things. It has to do with whether or not we love our lives and want to share them with our children.
The whole the whole back in the day, you used to have to learn English and blah blah blah. There's legitimacy to those arguments, and I do think that you should have to learn English if you come to the United States. I do think that it would be cool if Congress made said that passed a law that said there was an official language and that it was English. And you have to learn English to be an American. And I think that I was under the impression that the H1 visa, H1B visa
H1B.
was the same thing. Was actually what the O1 is.
Nope, that's the lie. That's the trick they use.
So
got me.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was a distinction. I didn't realize that the H1B visa was just, was being abused as much as it is. And so I have no problem with the O1 visa either. The H1B, we can get rid of it. I think it's fine if we shut down a lot of immigration. We could cut immigration down to a trickle and I'd be perfectly fine with it. I do think that it's good. It would be good if the people that are here that are not Americanized did assimilate. I do think that should be something that we demand of the people that come to the United States. You should come to the United States and become an American. If your ideology doesn't line up with the American ideology, you shouldn't be allowed to come here. It's not racist to say your culture doesn't fit in with ours, and you can either, if you want to live life according to the old ways that your culture has, go back to where you came from. If you're going to come to the United States, you come to become an American. You know, I don't think that I don't understand why there's such a problem with that, or why people have decided that that's a problem. It's perfectly fine for there to be a bunch of different countries around the world, and a lot of the places will allow you to go to the place that you prefer.
Donald Trump wants to have military parades, which was like a normal thing for everybody for a long time. It is not fascist. It is, it's
pride.
Yeah, we have a strong military.
Yeah.
We're proud of those who sacrificed for the United States. It's strange that Trump's like, well, let's honor the men and women in uniform and have a military parade. And they're like, that's fascism because it's showing off military might and power. It's like, we love our veterans. That's like every country does. They want to destroy us, our values, our traditions. And they have claimed when we say things like, we don't like happy holidays, I'm not going to cry about it, but I say Merry Christmas because I love Christmas. And I understand it means a lot more to most people than it does to me. To me, it's like I grew up Catholic, but it's largely just family American tradition. I do respect the Christian moral values that have shaped this country tremendously. And I think these are things that we should maintain, uphold, and cherish. And the left wants to convince you you're an evil, fascistic monster for saying, I love what my parents gave me. That's insane. The idea that you would teach your children discipline and morals is not fascism. The idea that you want to celebrate those who would sacrifice to protect your way of life is not fascism. And this is the game they play when we try to say things like, hey, man, we're for legal immigration so long as it's not at the expense of the American worker and at the expense of American culture. We love it that people want to move to this country, but they have to assimilate. We respect our veterans. We support our troops. We believe that policing can be and largely is a great institution. We all recognize there are problems. Nobody thinks everything is perfect. There's corruption. We're going to get rid of it. And they want to tell you, they want you scared. There are people who live in cities who are terrified to say, I love Christmas because they'll be called a fascist. And I think people just need to be like, no. These are the things I love. My parents gave these things to me, and I'm going to give them to my kids. And I don't want 15 million non-citizens for any reason coming here and then making us erase those traditions and put up a holiday tree. That's not what it is. I went to the mall and we had Santa Claus and we had a Christmas tree and there was a tradition there. And it's okay that we love those things and want them to be protected. Saying, I would prefer that my local mall continue this tradition has nothing to do with authoritarianism or attacking minorities.
Yeah, we need to stop doing what we got here. Like, a great point you had before, Tim, was how the Christians turn the other cheek and are tolerant of others and allow them what they do because as long as they're doing it away from us. And they've been doing it to us for years. We're done with that. It's time to be over with that shit.
Look, man, we see the far left engage in violent, deceptive tactics to put weird books in the schools, to teach kids about adult graphic content. And they tell you when you say, hey, I think that goes too far. They say you're a white supremacist, fascist, far right, etc. Yeah. Enough. Much like the racist thing has fallen out of meaning anything because everybody's racist now. The same thing should happen to fascist, far right. We should be proud to say, look, man, I grew up on apple pie, baseball, and Christmas trees, and I'm going to keep that tradition up. Okay, and we're going to make sure that in our city centers and when our town comes together, out here in Ranson, West Virginia, they had a large tree lighting ceremony on Christmas, and they call it Christmas, and they called it a tree lighting ceremony. We don't need any of this non-denominational generic holiday season celebration. I'm not for that. And it's not authoritarian to say, if my tax dollars pay for it, I have a say in what it represents. So when I go to town hall meetings or when I'm talking to the locals, I say, hey, I pay for this too, Christmas tree. And then they're going to call you a fascist. Nah, get out of here. I say, look, H-1B, I get. But it's abusive, it's abused, and it displaces the American worker, and it's causing cultural decay. I don't care what you call me. It's a fact. These libertarian, I don't know how I got on the libertarian rant, but you get the point.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a nationalist if you're proud of your nation, proud of your country. They just take it the wrong way. They think it means something else.
Well, and I think we talked about this earlier. I think 2025 is the year where we're just kind of done with the guilt. This guilt of having to admit or like to watch what you're saying, because they push so hard that they force you. It's what's the cancer walk on Seinfeld? The ribbon.
Oh, the red ribbon one?
Yeah, the red ribbon. You got to wear your ribbon. You got to wear a ribbon. Where's your ribbon? And it's like, we're just done. I'm done feeling guilty when I do nothing wrong. Yeah, I'm done feeling guilty because my parents' traditions I want to pass on to the next generation. I agree with
Christmas.
The idea that you should feel bad about yourself, you should know yourself enough to know whether you're a fascist or whether you're some kind of bigot. And if someone says something to you that doesn't reflect what you actually are, you should not worry about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. No more guilt. I don't care. Look, dude, I want people to live peaceful lives, happy lives, but there is a line. And we talked about this quite a bit. You know, I've had this, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of the slippery slope, what it means to be liberal. I think I've very much fallen into I'm falling into the post-liberal camp. It's not necessarily conservative, but it recognizes the failings of classical liberalism. Carl Benjamin, the Lotus Eaters podcast, they're really great on this stuff. And I think one of the things that was a big moment of recognition for me was the slippery slope isn't one direction. They always try to make the claim that the slippery slope is in one direction. It's not. No matter, it's a slippery ice rink where no matter which direction you go, you're sliding in that direction. And so the point we brought up the other day was when we as rather liberal individuals, and I don't mean you guys, because I know but I grew up in this liberal area, and we said gay marriage is fine. These people want to be in their own homes with who they love, and they should have the tax benefits. If someone goes to the hospital, they should be able to go and visit them. I'm like, yeah, all that makes sense. And now they've used that to argue children should get adult material in schools. And I'm like, no. I'm totally opposed to that. They call me far right. They call me conservative because I'm now saying stop teaching kids about this kind of adult fetishism. That's not reproduction. So we fight back, right? We get in the political arena and we say, this is enough. We don't want it. But then you go in the other direction. And now Obergefell, we talked about this yesterday, was a 5-4 decision. If this ends up going to the Supreme Court again, it likely would get overturned. And then you're going to have only, I think, 36 or 38 states that actually have gay marriage. And so there is no happy medium. If you say, okay, fine, we're totally cool with gay marriage, you end up with the argument liberals have made is that in schools, teachers are gay married and the kids want to know about, they'll see a picture of the person's husband. I'm not kidding. This is literally the argument they made. They were on X a ton of videos, and they were like, what happens if a student sees a male teacher's husband and asks about it? Are they allowed to explain it? And I'm like, perhaps they could say that's something for home to ask your parents and not bring into schools. They argue, however, it's discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include male-female sex ed and not female-female, male-male, and all other genders. So, see, the issue is, it's not that they've incremented us in that direction. It's that the moment gay marriage happened, that argument existed. And they used it and said, we will sue you for violation of civil rights because you can't have heterosexual without homosexual sex ed. And I had a liberal actually argue to me when I said, you actually think these books with fetish, weird stuff in it should be allowed for kids? And the response I got from this dude, who's a friend of mine, was, sex ed has been in schools forever. What's the problem? And I said, this is not sex ed. This is fetishism. And he goes, no, it's just that people experience sex differently. And I'm like, and there it is. The moment the ruling comes down, the argument exists. Now, people are pushing back and they're saying, we don't want this. You get a Donald Trump. Donald Trump puts three more conservative justices on the Supreme Court. If Obergefell goes to the Supreme Court, it's likely to go 6-3, overturning it under the argument, hey, it's not a question for the Supreme Court. Maybe. I don't know if that happens. But my point is, there's no happy medium. There's no middle ground. It's a slippery slope in all directions.
And I think sometimes it has to get bad enough for people to wake up on all sides, right? Look, how does a Ron Paul libertarian become a diehard MAGA guy who thinks that Trump has to win the White House? Well, when they started saying they were going to cut off the private parts of our kids, maybe that woke me up a little bit, right? I think sometimes it gets to this point where you're like, what are you saying? There's no way you're arguing that. You're talking about these people are actually arguing this with a straight face. But I think you're right. I mean, it can happen from different angles, but a lot of this, we were like, how did we get here?
Sometimes being principled means allowing monstrous behavior, and I'm not okay with that. Like, being principled is like, well, it's not my kid. Well, if if the parents want it to, then okay. F that, man. Yeah. It is not okay to mutilate children's bodies.
Let's jump to this story and talk about where these liberal policies get us. From the Daily Mail. Apocalyptic inferno rips through celebrity-packed LA mansions as thousands run for their lives but are blocked by gridlocked traffic. Dang. Now, I hope everybody is safe. This is a tragedy. It's horrifying. And I am not blaming these people who are suffering for anything directly. This is just wildfires happen. It's a tragedy. However, California is largely mismanaged. They don't do, what do they call it? Forest floor maintenance, brush maintenance. A lot of work has to be done because, you know, the reality is throughout history, outside of civilization, wildfires happen. Because the brush falls down, the tinder builds up, fires start, it burns it all out. Now we got people living in these places, which means we have to do forest floor management, and they don't do it. But you know what? There's going to be a lot of breaking news on this stuff. I hope everybody is okay.
Yes. But
now I'm going to throw some shade over at California because this video was going viral. Here's a video from Fire Photo Girl. Unbelievable. I'm literally fighting with a homeless person who is lighting fires. She told me she is doing a good thing. Colton jurisdiction. So this video is apparently in the eastern, it's in San Bernardino, which is maybe about an hour east of the LA area proper. The Palisades are on the western side. So I'm not saying this homeless person started the wildfires, but this is literally a video of what appears to be a homeless person starting a brush fire. And when you have a massive and dramatic escalation of homeless, or what I would describe as people removed from society living in your communities, you're going to get these wildfires. You're going to get crime. You're going to get violence. And so I just want to make sure that people understand this. This isn't the only video. I got a story for you guys. Let me pull this one up. From kget.com. 2024 sees rise in fires in Bakersfield suspected to be started by homeless people. Bakersfield, California. This is a story from December 31st. Fires are being lit in California by homeless people. If they came out into the Palisades fire or these other wildfires were started because of the homeless people are starting them, I'd say, well, yeah, we have the news reporting. So here's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say anything about the Palisades fire and who started it. We don't know. I don't know. But I'm saying California is a perfect example of liberal mismanagement and failure of a state, and it's sad.
Are you telling me that a community largely comprised of mentally ill people happened to start a lot of fires too? You gotta be joshing me. You can't be serious. Look, a massive part of why there are homeless, of the homeless people that there are, is because they're suffering from mental illness. I personally think it's probably a good idea to bring back involuntary commitment and bring back state facilities to take care of people that are mentally ill.
That's tough.
It's really awful to think because they were being abused before, but man, I don't think that it's actually more humane to allow them to live on the streets, to allow them to use drugs.
The island.
Greenland.
No, let's not sully beautiful, beautiful Greenland. Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Yukon territory.
You don't need to waste money on social programs to send them up north.
I mean, look, it's like you put 1 million monkeys in a room and eventually they'll write Shakespeare, right? You put 1 million mentally ill people in the Yukon territory, eventually they'll build a city.
Eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, how do you help deranged, unwell individuals who are starting fires? The answer is not to let them roam about homeless, hungry, and derelict. Yep. The answer is, I'm not going to say it's necessarily to forcefully round them up and put them into, facilities and mental institutions or anything like that. I'm saying right now, whatever it is they're doing ain't working, and it's getting worse.
Well, Trump, I know this is probably not something he's going to push for, but he always does specifically talk about, when the people are coming over the border, they're from insane asylums. Like he uses those words quite a bit. I'm with you, Phil. I don't really think there is a better answer. I mean, I think it was Austin, Texas. They had this fund that was set up that said, hey, we will fund $1 billion if somebody can come up with a plan to fix homelessness. Or let's say it was $100 million. Right. And they put the brightest minds on it. And it's like, you cannot fix crazy.
Yep.
These people, most of them are drug addicts, alcoholics, but they are crazy.
Yep.
And
Substance abuse and homeless and mental illness of homeless people is a Venn diagram of a circle.
Yeah. So I think anybody that thinks there's an easy solution here, but at what point does the left finally admit or realize that trying to fix this is not when do they hit that point? When their own house gets burned down?
When they stop being on the left. So Anna Kasparian is what happens, right? If you listen to Hassan Hassan Piker, if you listen to him, he will come up with a whole slew of excuses as to why it's the stresses of capitalism and blah, 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 all kinds of garbage. But when it becomes a reality, like it did with Anna Kasparian, then they say, okay, you know what? The leftist policies that I've been endorsing and that I've been voting for and that are that have been instated in California, they just don't work. And so you stop being a leftist is what happens, because the leftists are wrong. Well, they're idiots and they're wrong.
That's only because she's like sane. Because we've had examples in the past where like the one guy got killed and the girlfriend went and fought for the guy who killed her boyfriend. There's too many scenarios where they want to help. You know, they're crazy themselves.
If he'd have assaulted her, it wasn't personal enough. And it sounds horrible.
Just killed the hub.
I know, but it sounds horrible. But she wasn't actually assaulted. It was her boyfriend. It was another person.
What story are you talking about?
The one where the guy got stabbed, and then she's defending the guy that stabbed the.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. It's racism and whatever. You know, he's hurt in his mental health. She was sticking up for the guy who killed her
If she
boyfriend.
had gotten stabbed, it would have been a different.
It was like last year. It was a big story.
But like the thing with Anna Kasparian is there were multiple issues, multiple things. She was sexually assaulted, and then there was all the people giving her crap because she said, "Don't call me a birthing person." So it took a few different
couple rounds,
a couple things to happen to get her to say, "Okay, I'm over this." But that's generally what it is. It can't be, or it's rarely just one, because that stupid moron from the Majority Report, that Emma chick. She got elbowed in the face on a subway one time, and she's down there making excuses. Oh, wouldn't want him to have to go to a facility. I was scared and stuff, but it's more important that he get to elbow people on the subway than for me to be not elbowed.
The homeless stuff, the homeless issue stuff really gets me on the left. It's one of the most annoying things, because these self-righteous hoity-toity people who've never even tried, like Kyle Kalinske, I ragged on him a while ago. They have no idea what they're talking about. They've never actually dealt with the problem. They have no idea what it is. And in their minds, I mean, you got to understand, this is a guy who doesn't know what a farm looks like. Yeah. He thinks a homeless person is a guy who got laid off from work and is like, oh, gosh darn, if only I had opportunity in this country and the billionaires didn't rob me blind, I'd have a house. The reality is homeless people are like, I need a hit, I need a hit, I need a hit, I need a hit. And you're like, excuse me, sir? Can I get you a blanket or food? You got a hit, you got a hit, you got a hit. And you're like, are you saying you need drugs? And I'm like, I can't talk to this guy anymore. I don't know what to do. Yep. That's homelessness. Sometimes I bumped into homeless people who are like, yeah, man, look, I'm not interested. I appreciate the help. This is where I live. Bye. And they were of sound mind, but they choose it. When I was in Seattle, you got a lot of teenage homeless kids, and they're like, we want to be here. Go away. They choose. There are kids who hop on the trains and they ride them through the north to the northwest intentionally to meet up with other derelict, rail hopping homeless kids. It's like, to them, it's cool.
Yeah.
There's no getting those kids off the street.
Listen, I don't talk about this too often. My sister's on the street in Kensington, and fentanyl, definitely fentanyl. It's been 14 years, and I tell people there's this weird, the first 4 or 5 years with the addiction, you're like, hey, here's some money. Let's put you in rehab. Let's put you in rehab. Hey, you need a place to stay. Let's put you in rehab for the 10th time. Let's put you in rehab for the 15th time, right? And you get to a certain point. She's my sister. I love her. I'm rooting for her. But, for your own sake of after 5 or 6 years, it's like if they don't want help, it's on them.
Homelessness is a choice, because if you choose to do the things that keep you homeless, even if you're like, oh, I would love to have a home. Okay, well, then you got to stop doing heroin. Right. And it's like, if the choice is stop doing heroin and go into a facility that sets you on the path to getting into a home, but you don't stop doing heroin, you're choosing to remain homeless.
And the issue is, you know why? Because I worked for a homeless shelter. The reason why you don't really bump into a lot of people who are of sound mind and homeless is because they quickly are not homeless. Mm-hmm. Because there are tons of nonprofits and organizations that will give you a clean suit, give you a place to sleep, help you get a job, and help you get an apartment. The problem is the people who are largely homeless are mentally unwell. And the answer of just let them do their thing isn't solving the problem. But when you run into a guy who's like, look, man, I lost my job, and then I couldn't pay the rent. They just evicted me, and I've been sleeping out here for a week. The shelters go, you want a room at a house? And they go, yes, please. And they take it. They say, we'll wash your laundry for you. There's breakfast downstairs, and we'll start, we're talking to various places that have job opportunities. And they go, thank you so much. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, I saved up enough. I got an apartment. And you're like, goodbye. And they're not homeless anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem is that that states, municipalities allow people to stay on the streets. If you don't allow them to stay on the streets, you go in and you clear out the homeless encampments, you knock their stuff down. I mean, it's a little on the rough side, yeah, but you tell them they can't stay on the streets. They have to keep, if they're continuously moving around because the cops are shoving them off and stuff, then they end up deciding it's too much of a pain in the butt to stay homeless. And then they'll go ahead and start doing the things they need to do to get off the streets. But if you allow them a place to shoot drugs, they're gonna continue to shoot drugs. And that means that they're not gonna get into a place.
What was wild was how quick society became numb to it. I mean, if like anybody who spent any time in some of these cities, right? It's just like, I mean, especially we always talk about San Francisco, but we just were so okay with it. Right away it was just like, oh yeah, the police aren't going to prosecute. They're just going to shoot up heroin. They may have overdosed. They may have died. And that's just how it is here in San Francisco. That to me was wild, how we went from 0 to 100. And, people, when they go to the city for the first time, it's like this eye-opening experience. First time I went to New York, right? My parents, for the first time ever, were like, hey, there's a homeless guy over there, right? And like, you remember that. And like now it's just commonplace.
Yeah. I mean, I was just in Florida, and there were homeless people on the beach. There's sleeping on the beach, and it was fine. If you allow, and that's in Florida, right, where you would think, they would, shuffle them along.
I don't understand how there are homeless people in the cold towns, the cold cities.
Oh, bro,
That's
Chicago.
insane.
They live under bridges, and the way the way the overpasses are built is they're really long because like an 8-lane highway, and so then you've got these like probably 4 foot tall. So it's a 4 foot tall cement block, and then every maybe 8 feet is a pillar, and each of them they lay down on top of the block in between the pillars. So as you're walking on the sidewalk, you pass like 8 homeless people who smell like feces and urine. That's Chicago, and they pile up. It was really wild. At the whereas we call it the Picasso. I forgot what the name of the building is, but this is years ago. I'd be downtown in the middle of the night. Me and my buddies would be skating. It's like 20 years ago. And you'd probably see 300 homeless people lying randomly. Jeez. And it's like 40 degrees out. And they're just lying all in random places all over the ground. Yep.
No shoes. It's got to be cold as F.
No, they got shoes.
Well, I mean, I've seen people without shoes and,
No, they have like, they have probably 2 shopping carts full of possessions each. And so they have mattresses under the bridges, and then sheets are laid out, and then they build little houses. Dude, I went to D.C., what was it, like a couple weeks ago, and you can see the tents lining they have those walkways or the roads that go. They have underpasses where I don't know what the name of the locations are, but in D.C. they have like you go under and a lot of traffic. There's just homeless tents around them. So on the top where you've got the bridge. There's just like 6 homeless tents, and we saw tons of them everywhere. And I'm like, man, who'd want to be here? That's crazy.
Yeah, and the cold, like you said, I mean,
yeah,
that is amazing they can last through that.
Let's jump to this story from the Daily Mail. Let's talk about our good friend Bill Maher.
Hey, Bill.
Bill Maher aghast as he shuts down iconic sitcom star for floating disgusting reason that Trump beat Harris. Oh, boy.
If you don't want to talk about that politics at all.
Well,
I shouldn't, because I really started this podcast to get away from it. So you're right.
This is John Cryer.
Yes.
But I don't know. Sometimes people say things that trigger me. And of course, we just had the election, and I feel like my conscience is very clear. I warned everybody about Trump, and then I warned them. Then I warned them about what would get him reelected, which was stupid wokeness, which is what got him reelected. So I feel my conscience is very clear that I told you and I told you and I told you, and I lost fans for it. Lots of the super woke.
Maybe it's because you're wrong.
Like I'm not woke enough for them. Yeah, but like I think I had it right. Like that kind of stuff is what lost the election for the Democrats. It's in all.
Maybe part of it. I don't know. I think a lot.
They have polling on it.
Well, I think it's inflation. I think Americans hate inflation.
That certainly was
They hate
part of it.
inflation, they hate riots, and they hate black women, and they hate trans people.
Oh, God, John, we're not
Dude,
going to...
they just spent hundreds of millions
They
of dollars
don't hate
demonizing
black...
trans people, and that's disgusting.
Yeah,
That
we
is-
shouldn't talk politics.
Okay, then you shouldn't.
I mean, this is...
Great.
Bill's cooked.
We don't have to.
No, and this, you know, I mean, I have this...
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is they do hate inflation.
Yes.
They do hate riots.
Yes.
They don't hate black women.
No.
The trans issue is not about trans people. It's about the gender ideology as a whole. But I love how Bill just breaks down like, oh, it's happening again.
Right in front of my eyes. You've learned nothing.
Yeah.
No, learned nothing at all. I mean, John Cryer looks good though, right?
Sure.
I didn't
He's
even
like a Wilt Chamberlain.
I didn't even
look-alike.
recognize him.
He doesn't look like he's, suffering from HIV or anything like that.
Here we go. And it kicks off, ladies and gentlemen. You ready?
You're asking too much often to rewrite, like, the idea that when someone is born, there is a default setting for humans, male and female. Not everyone is. Now, a real conservative would say, no, everyone is. I would never say that.
But
I think
there are
what a liberal says
there are
is,
chromosomal
yes,
spectrums.
there's a default.
There's
a default setting,
hermaphroditism.
but then there's a whole other
Yeah.
other section, and that's great, and we should protect those people. But don't pretend there isn't also a default setting. And you can't rewrite the world so that every baby is just a jump ball. Oh, it could be anything. No, if it's got a dick, it's probably a boy. And if it's
Probably.
not, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that in a compassionate way.
Well, yeah,
but
I
we'll
think-
also be apprised of the idea that children don't know shit about anything. Yes, sometimes it is obvious, and we should address it that way. But I mean, kids, Christ Almighty! I mean, the idea that I would, as a child, would have had to have dealt with something like this.
Well, again, the people that go through it don't say this is the life I want. No parent wants to be in the midst of those choices. It's
Some
terrifying.
kids these days actually just do want to be trans.
I
it's
don't
cooler,
agree.
John.
I don't
it's
agree.
a thing.
Who cares if you agree?
I don't agree.
Come on.
I don't agree with Bill Maher.
I don't-
That's the name of the show tonight.
Well, your eyes are not open to that, I
Okay,
think.
well,
I really,
okay,
There
Hollywood
are
bubble,
some
man.
kids,
yeah.
especially, why is it like so much more prevalent, like here than Indiana?
Well,
are they suppressing
point,
it there?
good
Maybe
point.
a little.
Yeah, there's
But
a
more-
societal
but like-
suppression, but it's like left-handedism. Left-handed
Oh, it's a
was
terrible example.
left-handed was
Worst
suppressed
argument ever.
for
Yeah.
for thousands of years amongst human beings. But
actually
once
not true.
Very
was,
untrue.
apparently in the 30s, scientists basically said there's no left-handedness doesn't actually do anything
guy
bad.
kills his own
Right.
argument.
Left-handedness shot
With
up.
this bull, yes.
People just stopped training themselves to be right-handed. And this has
Well,
happened societally before.
So this is where we're currently at. They've learned nothing. They will continue doing the same things.
Amen.
And I say if that allows us to win and gets us through the midterms, thank you, John Cryer. I appreciate it.
And talk about his regurgitated talking points. Like, at least you'd think maybe there'd be some nuance. And it's like, you can see it in his eyes that he's not going to get invited back to these cocktail parties in Hollywood if he doesn't speak up because, Bill is hitting on just all of the basic points. And it's just the same thing. We've heard it, for 8 years? 10 years now? It's the same talking points. And thank God they've learned nothing, like you said.
I mean, I don't know that I want to say thank God, because I think that the country would be better off if they weren't, if they had learned something and we didn't have these stupid fights about, whether or not children are born a sex or not. Like the idea that just the concept of assigned a gender at birth, that is absurd.
Every time
ridiculous.
Alice and I are out, she's very pregnant, and people are like, so do you know the gender of the baby? I always respond with, oh, well, we're not going to know for at least 10 years until they tell us. And then everybody laughs because in no reality, like, it's the funniest thing. There's this viral video where there's this like fat leftist woman, and she's like, I'm non-binary. And then someone says, what gender is your cat? And she goes, it's a boy. And they're like, how do you know? And she's like, he has boy parts. And then it's just dead silence for like 30 seconds. It's like, yeah. But I'm not trying to get into all that. The key point here was Bill Maher's mental breakdown as he's realizing, like, there's no escape.
Right.
He's right. There are polls showing that it's not the only reason or even the top reason. Immigration and economics were the top factors. But the Wall Street Journal referred to gender ideology as a sleeper issue. And then you can hear John Cryer immediately go, he may as well have just said, Bill, you've said a thing that will get me kicked out of the cult, so I'm going to pretend to oppose you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
I disagree with Bill Barr.
I mean, it's so ridiculous because the whole of society is starting to reject this stuff. You've got the stuff with the Tavistock Clinic in the UK, which was one of the preeminent places to bring your trans child, I guess is a fair way to say it. And even they've stopped doing it. They're all over Western Europe. They're starting to say, okay, we're not going to allow children to have hormone therapy and stuff like that.
But you know what the real inflection point for us? It was when Disney said they were removing that transgender storyline from their kids show. Was it Disney or was it Pixar? I think it was Disney, right? Disney Plus was doing a show. And then they were like,
we're Disney. Yeah.
We're taking this character out.
The statement.
And then all of these LGBTQ people were like, oh, no, we're being oppressed or whatever. And it's just like, I think the American people are just telling you've overstayed your welcome and we're over it. But like I said, man, if John Cryer wants to go on Bill Maher's show to his limited audience and then be as woke as possible, I actually hope more people see it. And I would consider sharing his show because I think this will help us it'll get us through the midterms. The big concern right now is, and I mean this seriously, the big concern is that we've got, 16 months, 18 months for Trump to get through his agenda before the squishy Republicans start just crying and refusing to vote for anything because they're afraid they'll lose in their district and the Democrats will then take the House. So it's got to happen now. If people like John Cryer and Bill Maher want to keep having these arguments, I say I welcome it. Yeah. Please do more of these shows. Then we'll get through the midterms and we'll get 4 years to accomplish the Trump agenda.
Yep, because even the sane, I guess you call them, sane old school Democrats, they are not for this transing of kids and transing in schools and all that whole scenario of sexual ideology. They don't want nothing to do with that. And I'll tell you that.
But it's the other thing, too, where he says like the American people hate black women. And it's like, oh, no, they don't. That's so ridiculous. Like Beyonce is one of the biggest celebrities in the world.
Oprah.
But what's
I know, seriously.
Yeah.
What's
Michelle
crazy
Obama
is that no one believes it. Like they're literally saying these things, and like, I mean, sometimes you say crazy stuff, and maybe okay, half the Democrats believe that, but like, this is like 2% of the population that actually thinks that regurgitating talking point that Republicans hate black women. Am I wrong?
I think it's more than 2%, and it's not just about black women. I think that there's a plurality of the American people that believe that Republicans are the caricature that the left says they are. So they believe all of the moral failings that they see in humanity. Yeah. They believe that the Republicans embody all of them. So they're all racist, they're sexist, they're misogynist. It's the whole deplorables comment that Hillary Clinton had, the garbage comment from Joe Biden. These attempts to dehumanize Republicans. I do think that there's a significant plurality of Americans that still believe that because they have the inclination to believe that Republicans and their political foes are bad, and it's the whole team sport thing and blah blah blah. So I think that it's more than just 2%, but I do understand your point. But I mean, look, it's not going away either. That's something that's been, that kind of stuff has been a thing for a long time. So.
Yeah, I've seen a video with James Klug and Lisa Elizabeth that they were talking to people on the streets of Philadelphia, and they think that Trump has a Mein Kampf next to his bedside, and Hitler is one of his idols.
Well, look, the one takeaway that was wild, we had 30 black dudes that chased ballots for us specifically in Philly.
There you go.
And I don't know what it was, but man, John Cryer might have had it half right. It wasn't Republicans that hated black women. These black dudes could not stand Kamala Harris. I mean, and these are not, all across, these are Republicans and some independents and moderates. Sure. But you want to talk about people that did not in a way that kind of one sect of people, they just could not stand her. And so maybe there's a problem they should address on that side, but not. Not to try to come after these, like I said, these talking points that are just, it's wild that people are still saying them.
Indeed. As an aside, my brother gave me these glasses and I wore them briefly on like one episode.
I thought I seen that. It looks familiar.
Yeah, I was like pretending like I was sleeping. But the funny thing is that apparently, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The way the Teslas work now, it used to be that you had to put your hand on the steering wheel. And then what people started doing is they would put ankle weights on their steering wheel, which would create resistance. And that's how the Tesla would know that you were paying attention. If you take your hand off the steering wheel for too long, it would start flashing and then it would disable auto drive. Now, the camera in your car, because there's a camera staring at you the whole time, stares at your eyes.
Yep.
And if your eyes go off the road, the screen starts flashing. So it's like we're on auto drive. I'm driving in like either the Cybertruck or the Tesla, the Model S, sorry. And it's like self-driving on the highway. And so it's a straight shot. And then I look down at the radio, and I'm like looking up, and then I'm searching through, and then you have to type in. It's a touchscreen. There's no tactile buttons or anything. And I'm typing in like goodbye yellow brick road, and then it starts flashing red like pay attention to the road, and I have to look up for a second, then press enter. You wear these glasses. That's the new thing they're doing.
So you can't text and drive?
Actually really?
People are wearing fake eyes over on glasses and going to sleep, and the Tesla will drive.
You can, if you wear sunglasses, I was just doing this the other day. If you wear sunglasses, the Tesla won't actually
stop you.
Yeah, it won't stop you.
Really?
But it does notice if you have a device in your hand. It says on mine, it says
phone down?
device detected in hand. So if you're sitting there on your phone,
So you're texting and
yeah.
What if you just?
So, which is hilarious. If you want to text, you have to turn autopilot off, so that way you can text and drive.
Okay.
And then
What if you put tape over the camera in the cabin?
so
It'll just be like can't do it.
probably because when I first got mine, I was like messing with my phone, and I was trying to get it. I was trying to just like record the autopilot, and it got all pissed off at me and said that I had one strike, and if you have like 5 strikes, they'll turn off your full self-driving.
Wait, you covered it?
No, I'm just saying. But if I assume if you cover it up, it'll be like yo.
I don't know. Yeah. So if any of the outside cameras are obstructed, you can't turn it on. So in the snow, you can't turn it on because the cameras
Can't turn the car on or the auto drive?
The auto drive. Yeah. You got to drive yourself. And it's really funny, too, because I've never had the thing help me. Like it's great when it drives itself. It's totally fine. You sit down, you press go, and you sit back, and you just like, and then it goes. But there have been instances where it slams the brakes on for no reason.
Yeah.
And starts going beep, 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 beep. And we're like, what is it freaking out about? Like, there's nothing in front of us. And then there are other instances where it didn't stop, and I almost got into an accident. So it was auto driving, and I was in Hagerstown, Maryland, and there was a car that was slowing down, not doing anything untoward. It was a normal slowing down, turn right, and the Tesla kept going. And then probably 2 inches, I jerked the wheel and slammed to the left and dodged the car, and I was like, what the? I thought it wasn't slowing down. Crazy.
Musk has said that they're going to have full self-driving, unsupervised, released this year, 2025. So
yeah,
let
let me tell you. Maybe in cities, but out here, there's a portion of the road where the right side drops down like 15 feet, and you might know where this is because you probably see it when you leave. The road's broken.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'm
nervous about getting out of here tonight. Yes.
Well, so there's only one spot within like 10 miles where for about 10 feet, the right side of the road where should be a small foot median, it's cracked off.
Asphalt split, right?
Yeah, and it drops 2 feet or maybe like a foot.
Yeah.
Auto drive can't see it.
Yep.
So I was driving the other direction, so it wasn't on this side, and it was on auto drive, and it's 35 mile an hour speed limit, and a tree was sticking out. And the car hit it. Oh. Like a tree fell down, and it was a small branch, but it did scrape the side. Car hit it.
See, I think you're right that it's city. So I had a Model Y, and I got rid of it because I moved to Missouri, the middle of nowhere, and I realized that not having a charger within 50 minutes of my house was probably a problem. But you're exactly right. If I was in Kansas City or if I was in a major city, it worked like gold, right? But when there's not the familiarity, when there's not, all the cars pulling in the data all the time, I had to get rid of it. It just was not, I couldn't use it.
This is all going to be fixed within the next 3 or 4 years anyway.
Well, here's the other issue. I do think it's fascinating that they no longer rely on sonar. That was a big issue, but then they're like, cameras are better. Yep. But the thing is, in a storm, doesn't work. So how can Waymo drive in storms?
I don't know. We took Waymo when we were in Phoenix a bunch of
Yeah,
times.
but it was
Oh, we
crystal
did.
clear skies. That's why they do it in
Yes.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because of the weather. But out here, you get a thunderstorm, and it tells you no self-driving. So how are they going to have full self-driving auto cars out here when it's raining or snowing?
I assume that it's going to be, it's one of those things where like, you're just gonna be like, well, I can't use it now because of the weather. Just like, when there's weather that messes up.
Can't go to work.
It's
Well,
snowing.
car won't
snowing
drive.
outside.
No, but like in all the movies where they're like sci-fi, they have the self-driving cars. How will we get to that future when these cars can't drive in inclement weather?
I think it's going to take there's going to be better technology. I mean, there's just no way you can't build it and rely on it, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I mean,
That's the thing. It's so they switched from sonar to cameras. So they originally used camera and sonar, and then I remember they were like, we're no longer going to use sonar because it's not as effective. But cameras can't see in inclement weather.
right.
So it's like, what do you do?
I don't know.
I don't know. F-35s can't fly in the rain, but we still got them.
Is that true?
I don't think
It's a debate. It's a debate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an issue with the avionics package.
Yeah, but come on. We all know that's a cover-up because our gravitic propulsion drones are our real weapons.
You know it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that kind of slowly just faded out of the news cycle.
Very quick.
And like the FBI, is this true? The FBI said the email was real? That guy, Matt Berg, sent an email saying that the U.S. and China have gravity propulsion devices. And then the FBI's like, correct, he sent that. And it's like, well, that's weird.
That is.
Like crazy people say crazy things, you know what I mean?
So are the drones up in the sky still? Since we
I have no idea.
changed topics
Presently.
from the last couple of days.
Don't drone me, bro.
All right, everybody, smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com. And don't forget, go to boonieshq.com to pick up your 28th Amendment board. Actually, I should pull this one up again because this is my favorite thing ever. So let me grab the old Boonies store. And, we in the team are sitting here, and let me show you this real quick. You want to pull this up? We have a bunch of different skateboard designs, like the Boobies, which is a blue-footed booby, and this is a sleeper hit. We did not realize this was going to sell so well, and people just love the Boobies. This is a blue-footed booby bird. They're in the Galapagos. They don't fear humans, and they're really doofy looking. And Sam made this board, and we got one behind Raymond, actually. I don't think you can see it. Oh, you can see it. There you go. And everybody was just like, I want a booby board. And we were like, oh, wow. So we do talk about whether or not we think the graphics sell better. And I was like, everyone who owns chickens is going to want to own a 28th Amendment graphic
Absolutely.
skateboard. The chickens being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep, bear, and breed chickens shall not be infringed. And of course, in the true tradition of the Bill of Rights, it was written with one thing as its intention, but a broader issue at play. That is, while the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms, there's much more to it than just that. It's about defending yourself. It's about defending your country. It's about enemies, foreign and domestic. The Third Amendment, which was no quartering, no one really cares about the Third Amendment. The U.S. government can't have, troops sleep in your houses, but it was actually interpreted to mean the government can't invade your home and use your property without permission. And so, the true purpose of the 20th Amendment, for all those chicken fans out there, is, for one, it's funny. And look at that picture of that chicken. Isn't it the best chicken doodle ever made?
Yes, I'm a big fan of that one.
I'm a big fan. And but it's really about the right to sell, to grow your own food and live healthy, sustained lives on your own. But as you know, I'm a big chicken fan, so chickens are based. So there you go, boonieshq.com. All right. Become a member over at timcast.com, of course. That members-only show is coming up in about 23 minutes where we talk about things that they're not so family-friendly, and you as members get to call in. So right now, join the movement. Each and every one of you, go to timcast.com, click join us. If you believe this show is good, it is worth continuing. We need you as members because that's how we do it. We are looking at doing a lot more advertisements, and I hate to say it, but it's because we want to be competitive, and we want to make sure if we stay where we are and try to go this purist route of we are an independent show and we don't need to do this, Disney and Comcast are going to buy out the space and crush us. So we have to be competitive. But I will also add memberships aren't the end all be all. They're a little bit more than half of how we run everything. So we really do rely on memberships. The more memberships we have, the less ads we have to do. But that's just the way it goes, right? So we rarely do ads. When we do, What we're talking about with some of these networks is an ad at the beginning of the show and an ad at 9:30 Eastern. So just 2. But we'll grab your super chats for now. The deplorable Miss Drake says the USA is supposed to be an individualistic culture. When a collective culture tries to coexist with an individualistic culture, it doesn't work out. But how do you convince your leftist aunt? Why do they cling to a narrative? Some people are weak. You can't do anything about it. Some people are sheep and some people are shepherds. And some people are coyotes. Just want to run around and do their own thing. Libertarians, man, I got to tell you. The only moral foundation libertarians have is liberty. Yep. I love that. Look up the Jonathan Haidt research on this stuff. Have you ever seen it? So it's like liberals only care about care and fairness, loyalty, authority, purity. They don't get liberty. They don't care about it all. Conservatives are balanced across the board. They have a balance of all of the moral foundations, and libertarians only care about liberty. To the point where some of the questions asked in the moral foundations test are disgusting, and libertarians are like, liberty! And it's like, oh, dude. Like when, was it Austin Peterson, or what is his name? He got booed when he said he didn't want people to be able to sell heroin to children.
Yep.
He got booed.
Yep. Libertarians are
good friend, and he stuck his neck out. But yeah, they go.
He is correct.
They go crazy.
Yes,
he should not be allowed to do that.
Liberty. I'm going to start using that. That'll be my response.
Liberty. All right, let's go. Jason Dixon says, Tim, I wanted to tell you my partner doesn't want to open a coffee shop. We will stick to what we know, real estate. Well, best of luck. Maybe you can purchase a building and someone else will rent from you and open a coffee shop. But we do have dozens. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the full number of inquiries we got in the Casper franchises, but it is copious. There were very many. So it's looking like they're going to start popping up all over the place. We're really excited for this. And it's going to be great. We're going to do events. It's going to be wild. Casper all over the country.
Sounds exciting.
That's our version of Manifest Destiny. Cody Justin Fannin says Manifest Destiny for the Imperium. People are calling Greenland Manifest Destiny 2.0. I don't know why Democrats are pretending to be angry about it. The U.S. has acquired territory peacefully, economically for 100 plus years. We go and we say, you got 60,000 people living on an island. Island's got a lot of resources. How about we start developing here? We protect you with our military. You get access to our country, our trade, our passports. We will also invest billions of dollars into your country, and you will live better than you ever did. And they're like, sounds good to me. And then the left is like, no, that's fascism.
It's a freaking win-win for those people.
They got to hate something.
Right? They hate America. Jason Dixon says, the Gulf of Texas. Oh, there you go. Jason Dixon says, also, can you give a shout out to Roman Nation? His podcast was developed from your community and Discord. Shout out Discord. We are creating culture. Indeed. Roman Nation. Isn't that crazy? I'm telling you, the amount of bonus content that exists when you become a member at timcast.com it's amazing. And you get to call in and talk to us and our guests. So the most important thing, though, is that you sustain us. The reason we are here every day is because members make it all possible. So shout out. Let's go. We got Stuart Voxberger. He says, good evening, crew. Let's have a good one. Go Team America. F yeah. Indeed.
Go America.
I agree. Go America. Saddle effing Tramp says, if we make Canada a U.S. colony, would they have to put Trump on their money? Yes. We would require it. I would require it. Just because I'm free says, Panama Canal is falling into disrepair. Negotiating the U.S. taking control will be an easy political move. Agreed. And the media is saying that China's not running it because they're once again conflating the point Trump is trying to make. What he's trying to make is that it is overutilized and China has undue influence over the Panama Canal when we should be the one in control and charging money to all these other countries. So the New York Times says he's fact check. He's lying. China doesn't control it. They just exert undue influence over it because of the economic pressures. It's like, okay, dude. Then we own Canada.
And we need to get it before it's too late, before it falls too into disrepair.
You ever see how it works?
Nope. Well, yeah, the canals.
Like, you ever see it? Like, I watched a video on Instagram, and it's basically like they have locks. The boat goes in, it locks behind it, and then fills with water. Then it moves forward, then it locks, then it fills with water. And that's how they lift a ship up like 300 feet. Something that weighs like 1,000 tons or something crazy. Like, how much do those ships weigh?
I mean,
massive.
I don't, the 40,000 tons, 50,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. And they float. For that, you ever just stop and look at like a 747 and just say like, that's nuts, that thing can fly?
Yep.
That's crazy. I like going to the airport and I'm just like, could you imagine what it must be like if, Benjamin Franklin was shown an airport? He sees all of these massive machines that are just incomprehensible to a man of that era.
This is why I don't understand why people are afraid of or people think, oh, a big plane makes me feel safe. I'm like, there's more gravity, or it's got a lot. It weighs more. Why is it that makes you feel safer? Like I feel like a smaller plane should make people feel safer.
No, probably because the big plane has more crumple zone.
Maybe.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the front of the plane is the most dangerous. The furthest back seat have the highest survival rates in crashes.
Survival rates, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when planes crash, people in the back have a significant high rate of survival, and the people in front not so much.
So all those sit in the back.
All those first class travelers.
What did you call it? A crimple?
Crumple zone. That's actually what it's called. It's where all the energy most of the energy is getting absorbed, and that's in the front of the plane. The crumple zone. Indeed.
Could go for a butterscotch crimpet right now, but go ahead.
Sure. Grofty says, "Make America buck again."
Hey.
I recommend chickencitylive.com.
They have a Christmas tree out there and everything right now.
They do. Christmas is over, but we're going to keep it going for a little bit longer. I want to tell all you guys, you're in the city, and humans are supposed to have chickens. This is true. For hundreds of years, humans have had chickens, and it makes you laugh. But here's the problem. Instead of having farms and animals the way humans, evolved and developed and built society, now we're in metal boxes in New York, surrounded by concrete and honking horns and brake dust. When you're at work, you go to chickencitylive.com and you turn on the soothing noises of countryside chickens enjoying life. And what do you hear? You'll hear when it's raining, just a sound of rain and chickens going. Burp, 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 burp. That's the thing people need to understand. Chickens don't go bok, bok, bok. They go bope, bope, bope. Sometimes they bok, but they go burp, 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 as they walk around. And then you're sitting there at work, and it will erase all depression. Yeah. Yeah, I think
like white noise.
It's the pharmaceutical companies that got chickens banned from cities because they knew that if people owned chickens, they wouldn't be depressed anymore. I'm not serious at all, but some leftist is going to write that up, saying like Tim has unhinged conspiracy about.
Once the wolf gets to him, we lost Billy the cock, our rooster. We lost him. Poor guy. But
R.I.P. Billy.
The wolf got him.
Yeah, we think so. It's either that or some sort of bird. Maybe I don't know. It's tough, but they don't leave much behind.
They don't. We had Mr. Mutton Chops, and it's because he had mutton chops, and so we had 13 extra roosters from our batch we incubated, too many of them. So we had them in a separate area because that's just too many roosters, but you keep them all by themselves. They're fine. They don't fight. And then we decided to eat them, and they were delicious. But we allowed Mr. Mutton Chops to live because he kept jumping out of the chicken coop, and we respected it. It was hilarious. I'd wake up in the morning, walk out, and there he is walking around the yard just doing his thing, and I'm like, you got to respect it. He's not long for this world. And so when we culled the other roosters and ate them with Allison made a rooster chili. Everyone loved it. It was delicious. We had pulled rooster and baked rooster, and it's all good. Mr. Mutton Chops was with just two other roosters that we kept for their genetics in this little area. And then one day we came out, and there was just a streak of feathers across the yard. A fox had eaten him. And we knew it. Well, he's food now. Now he's not. Now he's nothing.
Are we making any more chickens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because RB3, it is now high time that RB3 has an heir. So Roberto Beeks is the king regent, and then Roberto Beeks Jr. we called him, was the new king. And it's because you can't have just the one rooster, the same genetics. You got to change them out. But so we're trying to keep some royal lineage, and so swapping them out. Roberto Jr. had a heart attack and died unexpectedly.
R.I.P.
Yeah, RB3 is the current king of Chicken City. And Roberto, who is the original king, is kept away from everybody for, we don't want that genetic mixing. And then it's time Roberto, RB3, we call him, had some children.
How many chickens? Are you public about your total?
I think we got like 35. Yeah, for a while we had a lot more. But like I said, we ate 13 of them. I think we ate 10 of the roosters and kept 3 of them. Yeah.
Some died off, too.
So currently how many roosters? Currently how many?
I think we have 3 roosters now. Yeah.
Got it.
And they're fine with each other. One is called Pom Pom, because he's big and poofy, and he's all right. You know, people think roosters will kill each other. They don't. They're all right as long as there's enough ladies.
You also learn that they do the cock-a-doodle-doo not just in the morning. They just do it whenever they want to.
Yeah, they just scream
right down the road, yeah.
every 10 seconds. Like, you know, that's why they ban roosters in neighborhoods. So, you know, a lot of places are like, you can have chickens but no roosters unless you snip their vocal cords. And they go, eh! And they'll try to yell, but they'll go, eh!
Coughing all day.
That's what they do. It's kind of messed up. All right, OMG Puppy says, Pierre Poilievre is based. Check out the video of him calmly debating a liberal journalist while eating an apple. I love that video.
It's a great video.
Pierre Poilievre?
Yeah, it's so good. He's just like standing there eating an apple, and the guy's like, "You're a far right guy." And he's like, "What is that? What does that mean?" And he's like, "Well, some of your positions are, you know, people have said." He's, what people? And he's like, "Well, there's many people who think this." And he's like, "You're the journalist. Asked me the question. What people are you talking about?" And
Name
he's like,
one person.
He's like, "Well, okay. Anyway, you've certainly taken a page out of Donald Trump's book." And he's like, "What book? What are you talking about?" And it's like, well, you know, you say things like Donald Trump, and he's like, "What did I say?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, but some people have said." And he's like, "What are you talking?" He's like, "I don't know the question you're asking." And then he says, "Okay, well, my question is, why should the voters trust you if you're taking a page out of Donald Trump's book?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're asking me. What does that mean?" And he goes, "Why should voters trust you?" And he's like, "Oh." And then he explains his position. It's epic. And he's just chewing on an apple like, what are you talking
Common sense.
Yep.
Because I'm the only guy that talks about common sense.
I've seen a couple of videos from him. I think he's great. I don't know everything about the guy, but there's one where he breaks down inflation really well. He gets asked directly, "What are you going to do about inflation?" And he goes, "I'm going to stop the spending." He's like, they've $800 billion. And then he breaks it down like, you have $10 and 10 apples. It's $1 per apple. Then the government prints $10, and now you got $20 and 10 apples. You don't have more money to buy apples. You still only have 10 apples, so now every apple costs $2 because a bidding war starts, and then everybody's fighting over the apples. And I'm like, that's a really quick way to break down the problem of mass government spending. Yeah, I like the guy. I mean, he's much better than Trudeau.
Yes.
But I don't really pay attention to Canada, so.
Who does?
Yeah, I know, right? The Canadians, I guess. All right, let's go. Cowpoke Ranch says Dick Cheney is pleasuring himself to this episode. Grow a sense of humor. I like what? Like Dick Cheney's going, "We want Greenland." Greenland's got 60,000 people on it, and we want to buy it. What's wrong with it? I oppose war and nation building. I got no problem with the U.S. being like, "We would like to bring you into the American territories, and we'll pay you lots of money." It's like, oh, okay, it's better than spending money on Ukraine.
Right.
All right. Carlos Y says, "Stop with the fake news, Tim. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Newfoundland are more conservative than most red states. Just take those 4 and leave the rest. Also, we have oil." Agreed. Welcome to America.
Done.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed out that if Canada became the 51st state, the problem is phrasing it that way. Canada as a whole would be the biggest state, I believe, with 41 million people. It would have something like 70 congressional seats or something like that. No, not 70, but like 50, 52 or something. I don't know. And however, if we were to annex Canada, we'd likely take each province as a state. They'd file or whatever. And then you'd actually end up with a decent amount of red states. But it still is left biased, regardless of these great conservative areas. So, sorry. Let's grab some more. Jackie Octavia says, Videntis on YouTube has an interesting video theorizing how Canada might be integrated into the U.S. Some provinces would be added as states and some as territories, like the Yukon.
Yeah, because we're not taking Quebec, French people. You know what I mean?
Nah, they can be their own country.
Yeah. We don't need that beef.
Yeah, and we should have a national language. We should be like English.
Yep.
Yeah, there should be a big deal. Donald Trump, if you're watching the show tonight, you make English.
Yeah, if there's someone out there
Congress.
that has Donald Trump's ear, get Donald Trump to talk about making English the national language of the United States.
Whiskey Biscuit says, what if the Annex Canada bit is just a big ask and Trump walks it back to only annexing the parts that want to join?
The west coast of them. Yeah, I mean, cool.
Back to
Alberta.
8D chess.
58 states. We take only 8 of their provinces. What do they have, like 21 provinces or something like that?
Feels like a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. Someone want to look that up?
Yep, sir.
I don't know nothing about Canada, and I'm glad I don't. Canada's good. They got poutine. I like that. Montreal's a lot of fun, but their government sucks. Did we find the answer?
Yes, there are 10 provinces and 3 territories.
It's that little?
Yes, sir. They're all giant. They're all biggies, except for like
Wow.
Nova Scotia and
I thought it was way more than that.
Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island,
Wow.
Quebec, and Saskatchewan.
Newfoundland. Why is that famous? Why do Americans know that?
I don't know.
Because you get the dog, you know.
Oh, 9/11. They shut down
yes.
the when they shut down the airspace. They rerouted every single plane coming overseas
To Newfoundland.
to Newfoundland. They did a whole musical about it, Come From Away. But this town of like 3,000 people, and there was like 12,000 like passengers, and they had to house them, feed them, and it was shut down. 9/11, 3 or 4 days, right?
It was a couple days.
Anyway,
I got a job at O'Hare
not
a few years after 9/11, and the people who worked there said that at O'Hare, when it went down, within like minutes, there were a bunch of dudes standing on the tarmac with rifles. They're like in suits with earpieces and sunglasses, holding rifles, and just like standing and looking around. And I was like, "What, really?" They're like, "Yeah, it was crazy." Then there was the UFO sighting in 2006 at O'Hare.
you saw it, or
I wasn't there because I had left right before it happened. But the crazy thing is, my friends who were there said that Mannheim Road is the long it's like the long. I don't think it's a highway, but it's a wide lane, like 4-lane road that goes right next to the airport. And my buddy was saying that people stopped their cars dead in the middle of the road, like just in the middle of the road, and they all started getting out and just staring up at this UFO that was hovering over the airport. And then all the witnesses said it hovered for about a minute and then shot straight up and punched a hole in the clouds. And a pilot, because this is back when they had flip phone cameras, snapped a photo of it, which you can Google and find. And it was a disc. It was a saucer. It was floating over. And I knew a ton of people who worked at, because it was really close to the terminal where I used to work. And they were all basically like, yep, saw it. Don't know what it was. And I'm like, oh. And then one of my friends worked there, and he was like, dude, people were getting out of their cars on the highway and just like staring at it. And we were like, what?
that's crazy.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Who knows, man? It's a very famous story. Like when you look it up, I think it's got a Wikipedia page. You know, the UFO O'Hare sighting was a big deal because there's 100,000 people all staring at this one thing at once, and everyone reported seeing it. Absolutely wild.
It does have a Wikipedia, but FYI.
Yeah.
Thing.
It was huge. Like everybody in the city heard about it because like people were at the airport traveling, and they're all staring out the window, just looking at a UFO floating over the airport.
Like
Whatever
fire
it
in the
was.
sky style.
Yeah, and then they all said it just shot straight up and punched a hole in the clouds. Crazy. All right, let's grab a couple more super chats. The Lion says, wait until the media starts comparing Trump's territorial ambitions, which is how they'll frame it, to World War II bad man's calls for Lebensraum. Is that what it was? The media isn't going to drop the narrative or of comparison, of course. And that's why I'm saying, you pointed out.
Elbow room, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's what it means? Yeah. Stop being guilty. Like, we're allowed to like our values, our traditions, and our way of life.
Yep.
You're not a fascist because you think it's good to have 2.5 kids, a nuclear family, the wife is taking care of the home. That was always allowed. And it's not a fascist because you like Christmas and you want to say Merry Christmas. That's insane.
Just ignore anything a leftist says because the whole point of them saying something is to make you feel like you've done something wrong because then it puts them in a position of power over you. Ignore them.
I'm also sick of going to businesses and seeing their employees wearing masks. I'm like, for what purpose is this? Yeah. Even out here, like the casino, for instance, at Hollywood Casino, some of their dealers are wearing masks. And I'm like, why? Come on. I mean, okay, it's smoky in there. Fine, I guess, but that's not why they're doing it. And
they're wearing them in the poker room. There ain't no smoking in the poker room.
They're not wearing them in the poker room. They do not wear the masks in the poker room.
Wow.
Yeah, there are poker players in D.C. You go to the poker room here, no one's smoking. Nobody wears masks. None of the locals do, none of the dealers do. All the dealers know everybody. Everybody knows the dealers. Because it's only like 13, I think it's like 13 tables. No, actually, I think it might be like 15 tables at the Hollywood poker room, which is much more fun. Everybody knows each other. It's much more like a home game. You go to D.C. and people are going to wear sunglasses and masks. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, we get it. It is an advantage. But my point is, I don't care about that. It's why do I go to a grocery store and there's an employee wearing a mask? I'm like, what's going on?
Right.
That freaks me out. I don't like it. There's no pandemic. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Why, no, let's not normalize that.
A lot of people are still doing it, and they're still wearing a mask everywhere they go.
It's largely about.
Insane.
I'm kind of glad they do it though, because it's like they're in the cult.
Yeah, they want you to feel guilt.
I suppose. I don't care though. You do what you want. But I went to a hospital recently, and they made me wear a mask because it was in Chicago. You had to wear one. There was no medical emergency. I was visiting. There was some people I knew, and those things suck. I couldn't stand
horrible. And then if you have to put on a real one, like the N95, it's like you cannot breathe.
Not interested.
I remember I'd be working at a pizza place back when it happened, and I'd be sweating sweating really hard, man, and it's just terrible coming down your face and your mouth, and you're breaking out, and it's.
Well, what's wild is when there's this cross section of institutions that like like the Mayo Clinic. Okay, I was going to the Mayo Clinic, same thing, no major thing, but like you literally when you walk in, like they were still forcing masks, and like when you're meeting with the doctor, like they're still pressuring you on the COVID jab.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how is it still happening?
You heard about that side effect, that breaking story, right?
The boobies?
Yeah, so I guess what happened was, and this is like New York Post reporting, and there's a scientific journal writing about it. The vaccine caused a lesion, which results in gigantomastia. And so they're like, there have been many women who've reported the Pfizer vaccine made their boobs grow. And then this one woman had them grow massively to where she has to get 2 reductions. Triple G, I think they said was the size. Yeah.
Might have to change my opinion on the vaccine.
I mean, that's what everybody's saying.
Triple G's kind of
but
crazy, though.
Pfizer right now, some executive said, figure out how that happened and replicate it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, for one thing, I got to be honest, I think we'd be much better off if we got rid of breast implants and you just gave someone an injection and their boobs grew. You know what I mean? Then these women would be like, you don't need the weird chemicals or whatever in the surgery, just injection and there you go, be happy. But I'm still not a big fan of the idea that we're going to create an injectable that makes women's boobs grow.
And then you know what men are going to do down the road? It's just going to turn into mayhem and anarchy with these injectables.
Man, I mean,
not it.
I think very much we will find a future where there's going to be injections that do stuff more than that, like cellular regeneration, regrowing your hand, things like this. They'll figure it out. Weird stuff, dude. All right, everybody, smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com to support our work. And if you want to watch that uncensored members-only show, it's coming up in a few minutes over at timcast.com. Not so family-friendly, but always fun and funny. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Cliff, do you want to shout anything out?
On X, at Maloney, Maloney, and we will be officially relaunching the PA Chase. Check us out on X at the PA Chase. Appreciate you having me, Tim.
Hey guys, I'm Raymond G. Stanley Jr. You can follow me on X at Raymond G. Stanley Jr. I enjoyed hanging out, Cliff. You did you did excellent work in PA, you and Scott, man. I appreciate that. Big time.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Phil?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix, where you can subscribe to my page. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can check out our new record, which will be released January 31st. It is called Anti-Fragile. There are 4 singles you can check out right now. Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow Divine. They're available on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Go pre-save that on Spotify, and don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
We were thinking about doing a show at next year's TP USA.
Yep.
We should talk about.
We should.
All That Remains. All right, everybody. We'll
like
see
a music
you all
show.
over at timcast.com in a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out.